News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show. Coming up on today's show, we've got problems with condo and homeowner associations. We'll deal with that. Also, where are the mortgage rates right now? You might be surprised if you're thinking of buying or selling. And how do you determine if the lender you're talking to has junk fees built in to their numbers that they're giving you? Also, we'll find out the common mistakes people could be using and doing in ruining their kitchen paradise. Hi again, everybody. Bob Sokoler. We're here till the top of the hour. Thank you for joining us. And with us for today's show, Randy Rocky, who is one of the head guys over at Swan Financial. They do a great job of getting your loan closed or to the closing table. To get it closed, you can reach Randy at 645-0736. And on the other side, the guy who's in charge of closing those loans. And by the way, you can pick the attorney that you want to use. And we highly recommend Chuck Crosby and the Crosby Law Offices. He not only does closings and does a great job of it, but also wills and then power of attorney, foreclosure defense, commissioner sales, and more. You can reach Chuck anytime. 499-6360. My son, Greg, who does our marketing and photography and a lot more, is with us as well. And if you are thinking of selling your home now or in the near future, feel free. Give me a call anytime, day or night. Go to 376-5483 is my direct cell phone number, or go to bobsellslouisville.com. Fill out the form and send me the information, and I'll get right back to you. By the way, you can see a rebroadcast of today's show by going to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's LouisvilleAnswers.com. All right. Let's start out with this question for Chuck Crosby over at the Crosby Law Offices. Guys, feel free to jump in. Sandy sent us an email. He says, my boyfriend and I put an offer in on a house July 14th. It was accepted on the 15th. We've been signing documents after documents. Well, we all know that if you're going to purchase a home, there are documents you got to sign. And then they were sending things back and forth the same day the bank requested it. They've been doing everything right, paid for the appraisal, inspection, packed up 80% of the apartment, told the landlord they'd be out on August 30th since things were moving so quickly. Even Sandy said she put a transfer in for her job to be able to work closer to her new house. Closing date was supposed to be August 25th. Now, here's where it gets crazy, folks. Apparently, the homeowner is now refusing to close on the house. He actually lives in New York City, and he thinks he can just refuse to close, and he can keep the house himself. He's been told it's too late for him to pull out at this point. At least that's what Sandy says. She's wondering, has anyone ever dealt with anything like this? What was the outcome? And their heads are spinning at this point. Chuck, what would you suggest that Sandy and her boyfriend do at this point?
Well, at this point, if he's refusing, I mean, if we've gotten to I will not do this, it's time to bring in the attorneys. You want to get some nasty letters out, let them know what's going on. You have a couple of options. First option is going to be suing for specific performance, making him, getting the court to tell him you have to do this. However, a residential property, I can't even remember the last time that was successful. Generally with residential, you don't get that. So that basically results in you're looking for a money judgment. How do you determine what your damages are to get there? Now, everything you've mentioned is generally considered incidental or hypothetical. You can't sue for hypothetical damages. What they have to do then is, if he absolutely refuses, find another place, same kind. And if, say, their contract was for $100,000 with this guy, and they go and they buy another place that's similar for $120,000, $20,000 is then their damages. Now, my bet is their attorney will add in all that other stuff, plus all the time and aggravation and whatnot. But technically, those are hypothetical damages, and you really can't get those. I've seen this done. It does happen. But at this point, she wants to get the attorney and start sending the nasty letters, and then they'll set up a closing. They'll show up, and when he doesn't, that's the trigger.
Yeah, and that's the legal side, right? But in practicality, in reality, in practice, we've seen that happen in our own world, right? Where the seller, we get there, and like Chuck always likes to say, is, and most attorneys, is what are your actual damages and what is hypothetical? You put in the transfer of the work. Okay, is that really a damage? You've hired the movers, and now you have to cancel them. You paid $50 cancellation fee. Is that really a damage? And do you want to pay attorney's fees and fight to really get into that home. Is that going to cost you more? And Chuck, can you write off attorney's fees as damage?
Not unless the contract says so.
Okay.
In Kentucky, each party bears their own fees unless there's something written to the contrary. The practical aspect of this doesn't happen much.
Correct.
Okay. Most people just go about their way and find another house. However, it's out there. And guy in New York may not know this is a practical thing. I don't know what they do up there. But also you're going to have some jurisdictional issues getting him served.
That's true.
Yeah. There's a lot of problems with doing it. And that's why most people just kind of go on. I like to point out that the contract is a legal binding document. It has teeth, but it's only as strong as you're willing to use it. If you're willing to go to the mat, you got plenty there. If you're not willing to go to the mat, it's paper and ink.
That's all it is. And we've actually seen that happen as well. But you're right. It is rare. Hopefully the guy comes to his senses, Sandy, and you're able to close on your house. If you'd like to find out what your home is worth instantly, head to welovelouisville.com. That's welovelouisville.com. Enter your information, hit send, and we'll get you an instant report, almost instantly. All right, over to Randy Rocky at Swan Financial. Interest rates dropped last week, and they're trending down. Just so everybody knows, because everybody's still thinking it's up in the 7s or maybe 8s. Where are interest rates right now, conventional?
NMLS number 26362. You're looking conventional. We're looking at somewhere in the low 6s with not a buy down, and FHA in mid 5s to high 5s. With the 2-point buy down, you're looking at a 4.75 APR, 5.62. And there are a lot of situations where I send out 2 or 3 different loan estimates, and some people take the buy down and some people don't. Again, being a broker gives us a lot of flexibility, and that's why our interest rates are traditionally half a point lower on conventional and 3/4 a point on government loans.
Your credit score, though, what's the lowest your score can be to be able to get the best rates at that point?
Once you get on FHA below 680, it starts dropping a little bit, and on conventional 720.
Okay, so just keep that in mind. That leads us to our question from Cindy. Is going to buy a house later this year. She's heard us talk about mortgages with junk fees built into the loan, and she's wondering, how can the average person determine what a junk fee is?
Yeah. And
how do you get rid of those?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is get a loan estimate, and we send them out all the time, and we go over every single line item. For example, Chuck's side on title. This is what your title fees are. In our situation, the only fee we have is a processing fee, of $9.95. But sometimes there's underwriting fees and there's other fees in there, and you'll be able to see that it's very transparent if you ask for a loan estimate.
And then compare them one to another.
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
okay.
That is correct.
Yeah, when you get to the actual closing, different banks will show those fees in different ways. Some banks kind of lump them all together. This was our fee. Other banks will itemize out every single little fee, and they'll have like 20 different line items for those things. So it's always good when the lender gets with them and says, "Hey, these are the fees that you're going to be looking at," and then they get to me and they don't get that deer in the headlights stare with, what are these millions of fees here?
Yeah, and that is good to know. And actually, it's a great question, Cindy.
Well, that's the importance of having a good team, right? Having a good lender like Randy, a good closing attorney like Chuck, because they're going to explain all this before you get to Chuck. Because a lot of times you'll go to the closing table and the lender may or may not be there. It's not necessarily important for them to be there unless there are questions. And if there are questions and Chuck's there, Chuck's not going to answer necessarily for the bank. He's going to do his best to explain them, but you need to have that explained with your lender before you get there. So
that's well said.
If you'd like to see some of our past shows and information, we've got a lot of information out there on the web. Interesting videos about real estate. Go to LouisvilleHomesVideo.com. That's LouisvilleHomeVideo.com. Chuck Crosby, this question is for you. Gilly sent us an email with an interesting question. This is for anybody who deals with a homeowner association or a condo association. Gilly writes in this email, we live in an area where every neighborhood has an HOA, whether it's a single-family home or a condo. They range from $400 to $1,000 per month. That's the fees for the condo association and maintenance and things like that. And she thinks the process is a little insane, she says. And Gilly says, we received HOA documents on a house we're trying to buy today, but the reserves seem low to be about 26% funded this year. So she's wondering, and I think this is really a great question for anybody when you're buying a home or a condo. How do you go about reading the HOA financial health documents? Because they seem like they're maybe a CPA would be able to make their way through it. But what do you think, Chuck? Is there something specifically, like how much of the reserve is enough?
Well, that's not a question that I can answer. I mean, that's not a legal issue. That's going to be how much money do you personally keep in your bank to, cover incidentals at your house? That kind of thing. This is just a group of people that are doing that sort of thing.
That's where an agent is, you could say a CPA, but really a good agent's going to help you kind of understand
figure out what the budget is and all that kind of stuff.
Take a walk around the property, look at it. Does the roof look like it's been recently replaced? Is that coming up? Okay, what's the cost of the roof? Okay, look at the reserves.
And that's all going to be in the condo docs as well, is when all that was done. When you say CPA, the condo that I'm on a board with, the guy that keeps those numbers actually is a CPA, but it's all itemized out. It's not that difficult. You just look at it and see what the reserves are, what the projected expenses are, what the operating budget is. And if you're looking at it and you don't see enough in reserves and those roofs are looking pretty tight, well, that tells you that there's going to be an additional assessment at some point coming up here.
Yeah, well, and then they're supposed to have 10% of annual operating budget in their actual bank account. And I just had one in Florida that was at 4.7%.
Yeah,
so now all of a sudden, I have to have the client go from bringing 20% to the closing table to 30% because it's a Fannie Mae guideline. And you're talking about, man, it can be complicated. It can be easy with condos, but it also can be very, very cumbersome.
Yeah, if they aren't keeping enough. But, everybody in a condo, I don't want my condo fee to go up.
That's exactly what their argument was.
Yeah.
Chuck.
Or you have others that are just plain mismanaged.
Yes.
So
and maybe it was a combination of both. I don't know. They just said that they don't want to raise their condo fee, so that's why they decided not to do this.
Okay. Yeah. So
until they're forced to when they have to fix the problem, and exactly. Assessment, and everyone is in. Yeah.
Touche. And is 10% a good rule that they should keep?
That is
okay.
Yeah,
I see. I'm looking. You can do a simple Google search. There are ranges anywhere from 10 to 40%, depending on how it's managed and what it looks like. The higher the reserve fund in your mind, it would be a safer bet, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
We did a reserve study, and we keep updating it every so often, so that we have 20 years out, and then we just kind of shoot for that. That's how it should be done. But
the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac guidelines not to have to bring more to the closing table is 10%. So I can get somebody in a condo as little as 3% down, or even zero.
But that's an important rule, is that minimum of 10% for the government loans. Yeah.
Right. So actually, I have one that closed with you all last week. It was 0% down. But they had a 10% operating budget. So
you're good. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more of your questions and also common mistakes that could be ruining your kitchen. We'll talk about that. I know Chuck is interested in that because he's in the kitchen a lot. He's a great chef.
I am in the kitchen a lot.
A lot, yeah. And speaking of Chuck, staying with us, Chuck Crosby. He is the owner of the Crosby Law Offices. They do a great job on real estate closings, wills, powers of attorney, and a variety of other things. You can reach Chuck at 499-6360. Also continuing with us, Randy Rocky. He is the head guy, one of the head guys at Swan Financial. You can reach Randy and his group to get you pre-qualified and to the closing table, 645-0736. My son Greg is continuing with us, who does our marketing, photography, and a lot more. And you can reach me if you're thinking of selling your home now or in the future, even buying a home. I would love to be able to help you. Free, no obligation analysis. Come out. Come out. We talk. No home too big, no home too small. You can call me at 376-5483 or go to bobsellslouisville.com. And we'll be back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you till the top of the hour. Thank you, Barbara Corcoran, for your leadership and friendship. You can see Barbara on Shark Tank. both on Channel 11 and also on CNBC on the reruns. Continuing with us, Chuck Crosby. He's the head guy over at the Crosby Law Office. He does real estate closings and a great job of it. Wills, powers of attorney, commissioner sales, and a variety of other things. You can reach Chuck at 499-6360. If you're shopping for a mortgage now or in the future, the guy to talk to is Randy Rocky. He is one of the head guys at Swan Financial. You can reach Randy 645-0736. My son Gregor does our marketing and photography, and a whole lot more is continuing with us. And if you're thinking of selling your home, I'd love to be able to help you. Just give me a call on my cell phone, free, no obligation. I'll come out. It's me. I'll come out. We'll talk. 376-5483, or go to bobsellslouisville.com. All right, so here's some things you should probably take into advise and maybe think about getting rid of in this case, Chuck. If you have, and some of these are pretty obvious. Spoiled fruits, veggies, get them off the countertop, get rid of them. Cluttered bills and paperwork. If your counter is a paperwork graveyard, that's really, do you do that, Chuck? Yes,
no, I don't, but I notice where magazines and or cookbooks that I've got, they all seem to end up on this one corner, and then it looks like, get rid of it.
If you're looking live and you're looking at the corner of Bob's desk, I'm not sure if that's a paperwork graveyard or if that's just where all of your paperwork goes.
No, that's my fold-in folder, and then I've got paperwork on listings that I'm going on. So, okay, that's good. Expired pantry items. I don't know how many of you have gone through this. I just went through this as I moved, and I'm still going through a lot of pantry items. And, I've been told that really most pantry items expire within 6 months.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Do we all agree that if it's expired, it still may be good and don't throw it out?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm a germaphobe food safety guy. I've been through OSHA training many times.
But if
there's not a C on the health certificate at a restaurant, it's just not fun. It's adventure dining. With oils,
you might be missing out on some of the best ever, right?
Yeah, oils go rancid. Things like that. But and spices. I mean, after 6 months, if you've got those little cans, just throw them out. They're just dust at that point.
That's great. Too many appliances. Yep. Blender, toaster. You really could. And the house that I ended up buying in Norton Commons, they have this appliance area and also pantry. It's pretty cool. That's a whole other room. So smart move on the builder's part. Dirty sponges, towels, used.
Dirty sponges for sure.
Yeah, those are
terrible. Unused cookbooks.
I don't know what that is. I hear the words. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So when organizing spices, for example, a drawer will work and not putting them all over. Knives need to remain sharp. Large storage blocks are a common go-to. Did you know spices are sensitive to direct sunlight, by the way, and can lose potency? I didn't know that. Keep daily spices like salt and pepper on the counter while organizing the rest in a drawer or wall cabinet near the stove.
My wife does them in alphabetical order.
Oh, I did that too. I tried that. Yeah. Did it stay in alphabetical order?
When the sister comes and visits, she messes it up for her. So her OCD, she has to put it back together.
Yeah, it's like Sherry. Her OCD, she's so OCD, it's CDO to keep it alphabetized.
Do we agree that kitchen countertops should remain empty, or should there be stuff on there?
Well, for photography, if you're listing your home, empty is better.
Empty is better. Yeah, less is more. But for living, day-to-day living, because there's really two ways to stage your house.
I'm going to say again, if you're watching live and you're seeing that there's 4 gentlemen on here who probably don't do any of that in their own homes. Now, maybe Chuck, because
Chuck does.
Cooking.
Come on.
I do.
Myself, I know Bob and Randy, I'm assuming the wives or our partner spouses are doing most of that organization. And when I'm in the kitchen and I cook, I do like to be organized though. So
I have 3 things on my counter and that's it.
Well, that's good.
So a jar for spatulas and such. The spinny thing for making bread and whatnot. I don't make bread, so I leave it there because Sherry likes it. And then a toaster, and that's it. Yeah. I like space.
I'll let you in on one small thing in my life. So
KitchenAid, that's what it is.
Kitchen. All right. So just married on July 11th, and so moving stuff into this new house we bought, and I put this stuff like, you have a junk drawer and you put stuff in the junk. Right. Okay. So I put stuff in there and I checked the other day and I was blown away. Jeannie had organized this junk drawer So it was perfect. And not only that, but then I had another drawer below it for batteries, things like that. Also organized to a T. So we're proud of her. She really is something.
Well, in our junk drawer, Sherry and I will compete with the crossword puzzle in the evenings, and we have our own specific pen for doing so. I'll make sure that hers gets tucked away underneath stuff in the junk drawer. So as she's trying to find it, I've got a head start.
All right, back to our questions there. So those are some of the things that might be cluttering your kitchen. Anthony, planning on buying his first home this fall, but wants to know how to figure how much, Randy, how much of a home he can afford to buy. In this email, he says, is there a calculator online of any kind that he could go to?
There might be, but it's basically, we do as high as 55% of your total debt to income. But as a rule, most people stay in the 40% range. So for example, on a $2,000 mortgage payment, all payments, all in, everything, car payment, all the above. If it's $2,000 total, they make $5,000 gross. So that's kind of the rule of thumb. Or that's usually what we work off. But again, we can go as high as 55%, and in some cases, VA even a little bit higher than that.
But you have to factor in student loans in some cases, right? It's a whole other, okay.
Yeah, the problem with those online calculators are that you can fudge the numbers to make it look good for yourself. It's kind of reinforcing belief. You're like, well, yeah, I could do this if I do this. But if you have a loan officer asking you the specific questions that may actually determine affordability, then you probably want to speak to a human and not a robot who's just giving you an average versus real.
Here's the other weakness, and it really isn't, and I think people on the show want to know this, is you have a lot of loan officers that will make the property tax a whole lot less than the homeowner's insurance. And then when they go to the closing table, as Greg has alluded, then it's a surprise. So make sure that you really have accurate homeowners insurance and property tax
because they're
thinking about buying.
The reason I say that is we've had, and I go on my tangents here about these big.com home sellers. You know them all. The big few that you're going to run to search for your home, and now all of a sudden they're doing loans and loan calculations, but they're based off of a very average set of national numbers, very surface level dive, and then you will go say, oh, I can afford a house. And we had a client who went to one of these sites and thought that they could afford a house. Did not. We urged them to speak with our lenders who we trust. They decided to still go with that .com because they were offering these great deals. They wrote an offer on the house, went to actually put the application in. We're excited. We're getting all these pieces together with moving vans and letting their lease know that they're getting ready to be done. And they get there to the nth hour, and lo and behold, they should never have been approved. We sent them to Randy, I think, actually to look at it. And Randy, I think your response to us was, I have no idea how this big box was able to approve them. And it caused a lot of sadness and anger from the buyer, all because of this big letter company that's decided to give you an automated approval, and it was worth nothing.
Wasn't worth it. Yep. All right. I think we've got time. One more question. This is going to Chuck Crosby over at the Crosby Law Office. Dooley sent us an interesting email. He says, we're in the process of making an offer on a home. Our agent sent the documents to the seller's agent. Only during the review of the documents did Dooley find out that the seller agent and the buyer agent, his buyer agent, are both from the same company. So the same brokerage is what it boils down to. So his question is, we can answer this, but Chuck, I'd rather have a legal opinion. Any concern or red flag, the fact that the buyer agent and the seller agent work for the same brokerage? Chuck?
Well, usually no, but there should have been all manner of disclosures as to agency and who's doing what, and then had that signed off on.
One of the very first things
from the very get-go
is agency disclosure, and it will designate what is a dual agent, meaning you could be working both sides of the deal, a designated agent, which is exactly what this situation is calling for. Hey, we're not together, but our broker who carries our license, we are both under their umbrella, which is designated agency. So
the thing that a lot of realtors I run into don't seem to get is that they are an agent. That means they aren't the broker. The broker is the guy that's in charge. He's the person selling this house. You're just an agent of them. It's like, I write title insurance through Stewart Title Guarantee. Stewart Title Guarantee is the insurer. I'm simply an agent. You work on that person's behalf. And in my mind, realtors, oh, they've got their teams here, they've got their teams there, they've got their LLCs, and they don't seem to get that. And that can be confusing to buyers and sellers. That's why that agency is that the docs are so important at the very get-go. You have to let them know. Otherwise, they're going to have this question. Wait a minute. Are you representing me or them? Or yourself?
And I'm sure we'll get into this in weeks to come. I know we got time up, but this is the reason the DOJ and NAR have made the changes that you might be hearing in the news that are getting ready to take effect.
Yeah, I was just going to say there are changes coming, folks. We will address those as we go forward. Unfortunately, there's still no clear-cut path as to where things are going. So as we get info and that we get it locked down, we'll let you know. But there are, as Greg says, DOJ, NAR.
And that's always normal because when you're starting something new here. There's no way to have a definitive thing.
They decided to build the spaceship in space. So we're just figuring out how the pieces go together.
Yeah. Before they have, what is it like that movie? Oh, they built the train track to this place over the mountain before they had a train who could go there.
Right. We are out of time. My thanks, as always, to Chuck Crosby, the head guy over the Crosby Law Offices. They do a great job for closings. Also, wills. I can't stress getting the will enough, getting it done. Also, a power of attorney, foreclosure defense, commissioner sales, and the like. You can reach Chuck at 499-6360. Also, Randy Rocky, he's one of the head guys over at Swan Financial. If you are looking for a mortgage in the near future or down the road, Swan is the place to go. They can get you the best rates. You can reach Randy and his group, 645-0736. My thanks to my son, Greg, who does our marketing, photography, and a lot more. And if you are thinking of selling or buying, I would love to help you. I've got a team of agents who can help you with the buyer side, but I would love to come out in person and talk to you about what's involved in selling your home. We'll find out what it's worth, and then we'll go from there. But that is free and no obligation to get me out there to talk. I'd love it. You can reach me on my cell phone anytime, 376-5483, or go to bobsellslouisville.com. We're out of time. See you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.